Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, the Bronze Sky Library. Today it's going to be a video of my January and February wrap-up of the books that I read and also the TV shows and movies that I watched as well. And mostly the fantasy and sci-fi movies that I watched and the book-to-film adaptations that I watched. So, without further ado, which is something I usually don't say, I guess we'll talk about the first book that I read in January. And the first book that I read in January is The Winners by Frederick Bachman. So this is the third book in his Beartown trilogy, and I'm really bad. I've decided that I'm just so bad at explaining what books are about that I'm just gonna read the synopsis on the back because I don't want to stumble over my words. So the first book is about Maya, who was tragically assaulted by the hockey star of the town, and then it's also about the people within the town of Beartown. So then, yeah, like the second book is also about those people, and this book is also about the people in that. So let me read the synopsis. So the synopsis says, Maya Anderson and Benji Ovich, two young people who left in search of a life far from the forest town, come home and joyfully reunite with their closest childhood friends. There is a sense of optimism and purpose in the town, embodied in the impressive new ice rink that has been built down by the lake. Seemingly overnight, the destruction caused by a ferocious late summer storm reignites the old rivalry between Beartown and the neighboring town of Head, a rivalry that has always been fought through their ice hockey teams. Simmering tensions between the towns turn into acts of intimidation and then violence, all the while a 14-year-old boy grows increasingly alienated from this hockey-obsessed community and becomes determined to take revenge on the people he holds responsible for a family tragedy. So that's what this book is about. And sorry, I wrote a script for this video. I realized in my last video I just struggle to just talk. I usually don't script out my videos because I want my videos to be more authentic, but I realized that I just struggle talking in general. So I'm gonna try to make my video seem as authentic as possible while still having a script. So hopefully I don't look down too much. But anyway, that's what this book is about. Sorry, side tangent. But this book was so good. I loved this book. I thought it was a really great entry into the series. It's definitely not my favorite. I think the second book is my favorite in this series, but this is a pretty good installment. So the book is pretty chunky. It's a chunky boy, and I think it could have been better if the book had been cut down a little bit, because I feel like we get too much page time with characters that ultimately end up not really being important to the story, and so I feel like we lose out on page time with some of my favorite characters like Maya and Benji. The page time that we do get with Maya and Benji is phenomenal. I just wish that we had gotten a little bit more of them and less of the other characters. And some of my favorite scenes in the book are scenes with Maya and Benji. So something that I tend to do is if I like a certain scene or a section of a book, I will go and reread that little section or scene right after I just read it, so I could absorb as much as possible, absorb that scene as much as possible. And so the scenes with Maya and Benji in this book are the scenes that I did that with because they were phenomenal. And it's not only scenes with Maya and Benji interacting with each other, but also scenes with Maya and Benji interacting with other people as well. I loved those scenes, probably the best scenes in the book, for sure. Something that Bachman is really good at doing is he's really good at weaving past, present, and future together in a way that keeps the intrigue, the mystery, and the wonder of the story. So we're still left hoping and fearing for what's to come, even though we kind of already have an idea of what's about to happen. It's phenomenally done. He does such a good job with that. Also, shout out to the translator, Neil Smith. He does a phenomenal job at translating Bachman's words into English, because the books, they're written in Bachman's native language, which isn't English, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Neil Smith, because part of the reason why I love Bachman's words is because Neil Smith is phenomenal and does a fantastic job at translating those words into English. So kudos to him. I unfortunately didn't really care for the last page, like the last chapter of this book. It just felt kind of out of nowhere, to me at least. I wish that we had ended on Maya instead of ended on the person that we did end up ending on. So anyway, the conclusion, the literal conclusion, the last chapter, wasn't my favorite, but I did enjoy this conclusion of the series because I got a lot of scenes with Maya and Benji that I absolutely just adore. So yeah, if you're like me and you like heart-wrenching scenes that just break you, then this series is for you, and I highly recommend you read them. So then the next books that I read in January is a duology by Rebecca Ross, and the first one would be Divine Rivals, and then the second one is Ruthless Vows. So this is what the synopsis says. It says, after centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Roman Kitt, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle. For her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. And then it says, Divine Rivals is an epic enemies to lovers fantasy novel filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. Like it said, it is an enemies to lovers, so Iris and Roman fall in love, and I think that is probably my favorite part of the book. So I'm usually not a romantic-y girly, as girls like to say these days. I usually just read epic fantasy or just science fiction. Well, not science fiction as much, but I usually just read epic fantasy novels, so Brandon Sanderson. But I loved these two books, and I loved reading about love and Iris's and Roman's love because it was just done so organically and authentically. Something that I really love is Rebecca Ross's writing and how authentic her writing is, because, so, like it said in the synopsis, there is a war going on, and Rebecca Ross writes war so authentically. It feels almost World War II. Like, this world feels a lot like our world set in the World War II era, and I think that has to do with how Rebecca Ross writes the way she writes. It just feels so authentic, and she is able to draw on the emotions of war and how war affects people, and she just does it beautifully. I love it. And yeah, like I said, I just love the way Roman and Iris fall in love. It's very authentic, and I like the idea behind them writing to each other, writing letters, and falling in love through that. It's so cute. I just love it. There's not a lot of spice in these two books. I mean, it's more of like, there's no spice at all, actually. I don't know why I say so there's not spice in these books. It's more of like a fade to black kind of deal, and I guess you could say there's like a touch more spice in the second book, but not really. It's still more of the fade to black kind of deal. So if you enjoy those kind of romanticities, then I definitely think you should read this series or this duology. It's perfect. I don't know. I absolutely loved their dynamic between each other, like Roman and Iris. definitely my new favorite fictional couple for sure. Anyway, these books were honestly amazing. I absolutely loved them, and I think everyone should read them, even if you're not into romantasy. Okay, if you're not into romantasy, maybe don't read these, but I think you should, because yes, it's great. Okay, so taking a pause on what I read in the months of January, I'm going to be talking about what I watched in January, and that would be the Percy Jackson TV show on Disney+. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I already have like 2 videos of my full thoughts on the first season, so if you guys want to watch that, I will try to link the videos. I'm still trying to get a handle on YouTube, as you can see, so I'll try to link them. The short version of all of my full thoughts on in the reviews that I have is that the show was mid. I enjoyed the show, and I enjoyed watching a good adaptation for Percy Jackson. And I mean, I honestly didn't absolutely hate the film, the like Percy Jackson film, especially when I first saw it. I didn't hate it, but I can see why it's not great. So yeah, anyway, the show was mid, definitely better than the movie, and I did enjoy some of the things. I just wish that it would have been better, honestly, and I'm hoping that season 2 will be 10 times better than season 1. So, those are my thoughts on that, and that's all that I read and watched in the month of January. And I guess you can say that I did read another thing in January. It was just at the very end of January and very beginning of February when I read this, and that would be the Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. Yes. I'm just going to refer to it as Frugal Wizard because that's a mouthful. But the synopsis. The synopsis says, a man awakens in a clearing in what appears to be medieval England with no memory of who he is, where he came from, or why he is there. Chased by a group from his own time, his sole hope for survival lies in regaining his missing memories, making allies among the locals, and perhaps even trusting in their superstitious boasts. His only help from the real world should have been a guidebook entitled The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England, except his copy exploded during transit. The few fragments he managed to save provide clues to his situation, but can he figure them out in time to survive? So yeah, basically with this book, you can like buy other dimensions, and that's what happens here, is that another dimension was bought, this medieval England was bought, and now our main character is trapped in this medieval England. And where to begin? So, okay, I didn't love this book, but I also didn't hate this book. It was just kind of there. It's a very cool concept, as you can see, like buying other dimensions, being able to visit those dimensions, like super cool. The execution of said concept just wasn't for me. Something that I think was making me not care for this as much as I was hoping for was the fact that I just couldn't connect to the characters, which is weird because Sanderson usually writes characters masterfully, and he usually creates characters that I can connect with and that I absolutely love. Like, this is actually one of the first books that I've read from him that I just didn't care for any of the characters. I think there was one character that I sort of liked, but here's the thing, I don't even remember their names. I think the main character's name is John. I really don't know. I don't remember. Anyway. Yeah, so So that's basically it, honestly. People do mention the humor in this book. A lot of people don't like the humor because it's kind of childish. It's very childlike humor, and I can see why people don't like Brandon Sanderson's humor. I'm not someone who hates his humor, but I can also see why this humor is more suited for, say, middle grade. It's more suited for his Alcatraz series than it is for an adult science fiction book, which also, I didn't even know that it was science fiction. I thought it was fantasy, so I even put it on my fantasy shelves. Like, I didn't know it was science fiction until I started reading, so know that going in, it's science fiction, not fantasy. I think what gets me is the fact that it has wizard in the title, but yeah. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the book. Definitely probably my least favorite book I've ever read from Sanderson. Sorry. Oh, I will say though, the art and the guidebook were definitely really great. I loved the artwork in his special edition, the Kickstarter edition or whatever. The art in that, beautiful, super cool, and then the guidebook, Sanderson like puts inserts of that guidebook throughout the book, throughout the novel, and it was great. Those ones were fun. So I will give points to Frugal Wizard. And then moving on to the next book that I read in February, which is another Brandon Sanderson book that I actually enjoyed, which is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. So the synopsis says, Yumi has spent her entire life in strict obedience, granting her the power to summon the spirits that bestow vital aid upon her society, but she longs for even a single day as a normal person. Painter patrols the dark streets dreaming of being a hero, a goal that has led to nothing but heartache and isolation, leaving him always on the outside looking in. In their own ways, both of them face the world alone. Suddenly flung together, Yumi and Painter must strive to right the wrongs in both their lives, reconciling their past and present while maintaining the precarious balance of each of their worlds. If they cannot unravel the mystery of what brought them together before it's too late, they risk forever losing not only the bond growing between them, but the very worlds they've always struggled to protect. So, yet another cool concept from Brandon Sanderson. So basically what ends up happening is these two, like, they're from different worlds, and then they end up, like, in the synopsis said, they like end up in close proximity to each other, so they end up like kind of sharing bodies in a way, and it's interesting. So and it's really fun, and this is also marketed as Sanderson's romance novel, and it's not the best written romance ever, but for me personally, I loved the way in which they fell in love. I didn't really care about getting like little romance things or like little cutesy moments. I didn't really care for like the way in which romantasy writers usually write romance. I didn't really care if I got that or didn't get that in this book. I just really liked reading the dynamic between Yumi and Painter. So Hoyd is actually the narrator for this book as well. Like, he was the narrator in Tress as well, but he didn't really put himself in this one as much as he did in Tress, and I thought it was really cool. The nuggets of like the Cosmere within this book was cool. I am not like a Cosmere nerd or anything. Like, I don't delve into like all of the theories or anything. I just read Sanderson's books and I enjoy them. But it was still really cool to like get some of the like Cosmere nuggets throughout it. What to say about this book? I loved the dynamic between, again, I mentioned I loved the dynamic between Yumi and Painter, and I loved the concept of this story. It's really cool. I also loved the magic system in Painter's world. It was super interesting. So in Painter's world, there are these things called living nightmares, and what these living nightmares do is they kind of they feed off of those who sleep. I don't know if they're feeding off of dreams. I feel like they're feeding off of dreams. Sounds right. But what Painter's job is, he has to like paint something that would make it so the living nightmare turns into something less scary and turn into something more innocent. They like will paint like maybe like a cat, I guess. Painter will paint a cat, and then that living nightmare turns into a cat. So that's the concept behind that magic, and it's really cool. I really enjoyed that. I think I really enjoyed Yumi's character a little more than Painter's, only because it was interesting having to see Yumi try and learn Painter's world, because it is more advanced than Yumi's is. So it was really, really cool to see that little quirk of Yumi. And also, just like all of the other books in Sanderson's Secret Projects, the art was phenomenal. I absolutely loved the art. Probably my favorite art within like the Secret Projects. I think her name is Aaliyah Chen. She did phenomenally. I loved her art. This book was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. I loved getting Yumi and Painter's characters, reading about them and reading their story. It was really, really fun, and I think you guys should check it out. Alright, and that one was actually the last book that I read in February. I did start reading Strange the Dreamer in February, I just never finished it, and so I'm currently still reading it, and I'm really enjoying it, so that will be in my next wrap-up video. But I will talk about some of the things that I watched in February. One of them being Avatar the Last Airbender, the live-action show. So I don't really have a whole ton to talk about on this one. There were some things that I didn't like. I definitely didn't like Boomy. I like the way in which I liked the idea behind the live action Boomy. It's just, I ended up not liking him, and I want to like Boomy, because I really like Boomy's character in the cartoon, and I just think what they did with Boomy's character here made me just not like him. I liked the idea of like what they were trying to do, because I thought that was cool and interesting. I guess I just didn't like the execution? I don't know. But, and then the dialogue in this show is definitely very exposition heavy, and it definitely holds your hand explaining things, and that just made it a little meh. But other than that, I actually quite enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I also really liked Daniel Day Kim as Ozai. That was the perfect casting for Ozai, I think. I really enjoy Daniel Day Kim as an actor, for sure. Alright, and then I also watched a movie. I think it's based off of a book. It's a science fiction movie, and it's called Poor Things. It has Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, a few others, but this movie... What to say about this movie? Okay, so this movie was disturbingly beautiful. So it's kind of like a modernized version of like Frankenstein's monster in a way. It's kind of like one of those where this man finds a woman, she like sort of jumps off of a bridge while pregnant, and this man finds her, and then he puts the baby's brain inside this adult woman's body. So, this character, Emma Stone's character, is literally a baby in an adult body. And so it's just this character, Emma Stone's character, figuring life out. And it's very, very interesting. It was beautifully shot, it was beautifully directed, it was beautifully performed. Emma Stone's performance was phenomenal. It's just a movie that's not for everyone. If you are okay with rated R, if you're okay with like dark humor, if you're okay with a little bit of sex, then I think this movie, you might like it. Yeah. It's not a movie for everyone. I quite enjoyed it. I don't know if I would ever like go see it again. I definitely wouldn't go see it again in the movie theaters. I might watch it with like people that I want. Like I would watch it with my film friends because it is a phenomenal film to watch for the directing, the cinematography, the performances. It's a really good film to dissect for film students for sure. And so I would definitely watch it with my film friends. And then, the last but not least, I watched Dune Part 2 on February 29th, the last day of February. I got to watch a preview showing, and oh, I loved Dune. I loved Dune Part 2. So when I first watched the first one, when I watched Part 1 a couple years ago, I absolutely loved it. So I haven't actually read the book, so I don't really have much to talk about on the book to film adaptation sense, but I do have some thoughts on like what I felt about the movie. When I saw the first movie, I loved it. There were some like boring parts and it was a little like confusing at times. For me, it's easier to watch Dune while I'm watching it with subtitles because that definitely helps with knowing what they're saying. But with Dune Part 2, it is a huge step up, in my opinion. From the direction to the performances to the cinematography, everything is just very well done. Denis Villeneuve is so good at creating this world. I feel like Dune is on the same epic scale as Lord of the Rings is, like those movies are. I feel like it's on that same epic scale. And I just love that for us. I'm so excited that these movies seem to actually be adapting a book extremely well. At least in my opinion. Again, I haven't actually read the Dune book because it actually honestly scares me. I'm not really great with science fiction novels because I just, like, science fiction just goes over my head. Anyway. But yeah, Dune Part 2, I just feel like Denis is really doing a fantastic job at adapting these books. Like, you can tell that he loves the source material. He loves Dune, and he's taking so much care with it. And like I said, the direction, phenomenal. The cinematography is so good in this film, from like, the lighting, the camera work, just everything. Like, the shots they're getting, so beautiful. And then the performances are also very well done. I really, really enjoyed Zendaya's performance. I enjoyed Florence's performance. Even though we don't see her that much, I really enjoyed her performance. I enjoyed Austin Butler's performance. I don't really see Austin Butler I haven't seen him in many things, but I really enjoyed his performance here. I really enjoyed Javier Bardem's performance, and also, Rebecca, why am I forgetting her last name? Rebecca. We're just gonna call her Rebecca, like we're friends. Rebecca's performance, Ferguson. Rebecca Ferguson. Her performance was amazing. Just, like, all performances were so good. I think I enjoyed Timothée Chalamet's performance too. I just feel like Paul's character, Paul's character just isn't my favorite character. Hi, editing Rachel here. Okay, so I totally forgot to mention something that I really liked about the Dune movie. I don't know why I forgot to mention it while I was filming, but something that I really liked about Dune is that in the writing, I loved the writing of the film. It didn't hold your hand. I mentioned something about in Avatar that it was just very exposition heavy and they just honestly held your hand through a lot of it. But in Dune, they didn't hold your hand at all. And I was confused throughout the movie, but at the same time, it was a good confused, I guess.
throughout the movie, I started putting the pieces together, and by the end of the movie, I wasn't confused. And so I really enjoyed the writing of this film. I know that some people that I have talked to, they didn't like the fact that they were confused about everything. They said that they were confused and they just didn't like the writing of the film and they didn't like some of the performances. But then again, I was talking to film students, and film students can be kind of pretentious. So, no offense to film students, I am a film student, but we can be pretentious. So, anyway, yes, I loved the writing of this film. It was phenomenal. So, points to Denny on that one as well.
This film was fantastic. I don't know what else to say other than that. It was very well done, and it is. I love it. I just really love it. So I think you all should go watch that movie. So good. So good. Okay, I think that's all I have for today. That's like those are all of the books and all of the movies and TV shows that I watched within the months of January and February. If you guys have some similar feelings as I do, let me know. If you guys have different feelings about like each of these things that I've read, let me know. If you like my content and want more, subscribe if you want. If you like the video, if you liked the video, just do all of the things if you really want to do all of the things. And I will see you guys in my next video. Alright, bye!